All right, let's talk about the new f***ing Architects album. The Classic Symptoms of a Broken Spirit came out a couple weeks ago. I listened to it when it came out. Truthfully, I could have had a 5-minute video done and up on the internet 3 days after the album came out, but I found that every time I listened to it, I discovered new layers of hatred and loathing for the album that I hadn't discovered on the listen prior. This is going to be the lowest rated album I've covered so far, for sure. Allow me to explain why I think that. Let's get our disclaimers out of the way first. Don't let me tell you what to enjoy and what not to enjoy. This is just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong or whatever. There should be no such thing as a guilty pleasure. Love the things that you love, wholeheartedly. You like this album? Fantastic. Now let me just go on record as well and say that I like some butt rock bands. A lot. Breaking Benjamin slaps. Chevelle. Fantastic music. Hoobastank even has a few good songs. People like to shit on Hoobastank, but let me tell you, they got some bangers. I don't like the piano song. Let's not talk about that song, but the other songs on that album, pretty good. And one of those music videos had Kanye West in it, which was a piece of music trivia that was a lot cooler 5 years ago. Never mind, sorry. It's good. Hoobastank's all right, is what I'm saying. So I do like some butt rock. I just think that this album that is butt rock, but let's rip that Band-Aid off right now. It's butt rock, is executed poorly and done with cynical intentions, as I will demonstrate. Also, I wholeheartedly believe that bands should be able to put out whatever music they want for whatever reasons they want. It's not really up to us to say what's good for a band because, frankly, at the end of the day, the band is a business, especially when you're at that level of sort of popularity. So I may not like what they do, but I'm not going to say they don't have the right to do it. Furthermore, I don't even mind when bands sell out, which they did. 100% they did, or they're trying to. We'll get to that. I don't even mind when bands do this. I mind when it is unearned and when it is cynical in nature. I don't care if a band wants to go from metal to pop. I've said this in the past. I believe that once you get to a certain level of popularity, as a metal band, a band in a subgenre of music that's not super mainstream, right? There's like a limited number of people who will even listen to this music in general, and even more limited number of people who will like your brand of this niche genre, right? So if you get to the tippy top of that, what do? How do you continue to grow? You sell out, and that's fine. My dad always told me, the first word in sell out is sell. I ain't mad about it. Get the bag, truly. However, if that selling out crosses over into exploiting your audience, that's where I start to scratch my head a little bit and go, is this cool? Am I cool that they're doing this? In the case of Architects, no, I am not cool that they're doing this. I'm cool. I'm fucking super cool. I might be the coolest goddamn person you ever met. But as far as like, am I chill with, well, I'm super, that doesn't work either. I am pretty chill. I don't think this is okay. I don't think that what they're doing on this album is okay. I think that Architects is, in essence, pointing and laughing at its old metalcore fans and trying to use that fan base as a stepping stool to more mainstream appeal. Oh, there's so much about this album that sounds like it was engineered to end up on the soundtrack for Madden 2004. I don't know. It just sounds like so much of this stuff is so like anthemic and sing-along-y, and it's just and cringe, that I feel like there's just a very sort of corporate driving force behind it, which again, I don't know. I don't know if I care about that. I don't know. Did Architects prove that you can be an industry plant, that you can just become an industry plant even though you're already a known quantity in music? Maybe. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what I mean here. I did a song-for-song analysis of this whole album, which was difficult to do. I've listened to the whole thing probably a dozen times, and each time it was a little difficult to make it past the first 5 songs of the album before I just stopped doing that and doing something else, because a lot of it was really cringeworthy. But anyway, yeah, so let's talk about these songs, and let's talk about the ways in which Architects has failed me as a listener of their music. Deepfake, first song on the album. Let me open this by saying I don't like most or maybe any of the falsetto on this album. I think it sounds not good. It sounds a little like cheesy. There's a little bit grating. So there's a ton of that in Deepfake. There's a ton of that in a bunch of these other songs, and none of it hit my ears right. The breakdown in Deepfake was a little bit of a roller coaster on my first listen, because up until that point, before the breakdown, I had just thought, okay, well, here we are with this radio rock, this like corporate rock metal thing. So my expectations were through the floor. I was just like, whatever. I don't expect much out of this song, or maybe even the rest of this album. And then the breakdown hits, and at first I was like, it's very simple. It's very simple, but it's not like Architects hasn't done simple breakdowns before. And it hits pretty hard. I was like, okay, here we are. I was surprised. I was genuinely surprised. And then halfway through the breakdown, they take all the guitars out, and it's just like synth and drums and like lo-fi vocals in the back. And that was a funny decision. That was a weird decision to make. I think it just kind of sucked the life out of that breakdown. I think the breakdown would have been better if they didn't do that, if they kept the guitars in and added some sort of rhythmic variation or something. But then again, I'm looking at this album through a metalcore lens, which I will admit, I am looking at this album through a metalcore lens. You know why? Because it's their 10th f***ing album, and all the other albums are metalcore albums. Seems fair to me. I have to admit, too, from a lyrical perspective, I think it's really ballsy to open an album that you are clearly attempting to sell out with a song that features lyrics like, "Do you remember who we are? Do you remember who you are? They took the ark and sold it all for parts. They've got a fistful of fucking gold, a return on the souls they've sold." Who's selling souls? I'm sorry, is this about you? Is this a meta song about selling out? Does that make it better if it were? Not really. It's kind of funny, I guess. Do you ever wonder what a song would sound like if Chevelle wrote the intro and bridge, Nine Inch Nails wrote the verse, and Imagine Dragons wrote the chorus? No? Me neither. But that's okay, because now we know what it would sound like. It would sound like tear gas. The verse of this song is, we'll call it an homage to Trent Reznor. I mean, almost, like, absolutely, right? It sounds just f***ing like, okay, whatever, we get it. Which, like, if you're gonna rip off Trent Reznor, that's fine. It sounds fine. My problem with the first verse in this song isn't the fact that it's, like, clearly and blatantly a Nine Inch Nails ripoff. My problem is with how they sort of structured the pacing of the drum parts. So, like, it's a 6-measure phrase, which I appreciate. You know what I mean? 4 measures on the minor 1, and then you have, like, a 2-measure turnaround on, like, your major 6, perhaps, or like a major 6 to a minor 4, something along those lines. And then you go back after 2 measures, and it's got a nice feel to it. I like it on paper. I like it applied elsewhere. I like it here too, but that 2-measure turnaround is where that breakbeat is first introduced. And right after, when you go back to the beginning of the phrase, it goes from this like 2-measure breakbeat thing to like a 4 on the floor sort of plodding thing. I don't know, bad pacing. It's one of the songs on this album that has this sort of like forced sing-along chorus that makes me cringe my fucking eyes out. I hate it. I hate it so much. That's what I mean, by the way, when I said Imagine Dragons wrote the chorus. It's got this very forced, like, I get it. You're trying to be in a fucking Ford commercial. Fine. I hope you attain that because of what it cost you. This song also has some sussy baka lyrics. These modern saints would have us writing our own epitaph. Well, we knew that it would never last. Somebody turn us inside out. There's nothing left of ourselves that we won't sell. This is the kind of stuff that makes me think that this band is laughing at you. You know what I mean? Like, that's 2 songs in a row with references to selling out, and that's just like, and we're gonna get away with it too. They're like a Scooby-Doo villain. Spit the Bone. Spit the Bone has really cringy lyrics, but it's got one of the better choruses on the album. I'll give them that for sure. As far as like a butt rock song goes, not bad. Again, I could do without the falsetto, and doing the last chorus in halftime tickles my brain good. I love that. That's all great. The bleh in this song, so given that it's song 3 and the other 2 songs have already given me this weird impression of a band selling out and taking the money and running at the expense of, I don't know, I guess the respect of its metalcore fan base, and knowing that Sam Carter has gone on record saying that he regrets popularizing the bleh, which, like, first off, weird energy. Like, yes, you're very famous. You sure do have famous person problems exclusive to those that are famous. Congratulations. But then you hear the bleh in this song, which is in like a swing feel, and I don't think I've ever heard like a metalcore song in a swing feel. It just is hard to do swing without either doing full-on triplets or doing like a true swing feel, and then it just sounds like a blues rock song. Like, it's impossible to avoid that. And that's the case here. This sounds like a blues rock song, which again is fine. But like, given that he doesn't like the bleh anymore, and given that this is like a For better or for worse, this album is certainly a departure from their traditional metalcore sound. So you put those two together, and then you listen to the bleh, and it just like makes me feel like gross. It's like the bleh is like Sam Carter's version of like laughing directly at me. It feels kind of like, I mean, I'm probably overthinking that, but do you know what I mean? Do you get it? You see what I mean? You see what I'm saying? Burn Down My House is very boring. It would be a boring Chevelle song. It would be a boring Breaking Benjamin song. It absolutely makes for a boring Architects song. Living is Killing Us makes some sort of weird melodic choices, particularly in the bridge. They employ this like sort of blue note that I think is cooler on paper than it ended up being in practice. I don't like it. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to do with it. Lyrically, this song highlights something that Architects has been doing for a really long time, in my opinion, which is sometimes the lyrical content is pseudo-political in nature, which is sort of irritating. Like if you're gonna bring up politics at all, be a little bit more direct maybe, and like have like conviction with your message as opposed to sort of like just dipping your toe in because you're not 100% sure what people are going to say about it. Look, I didn't give Green Day any bonus points in 2004 for spouting off political rhetoric that was just like softball, easy to agree with statements such as George Bush sucks. I didn't give them bonus credit for that. I'm certainly not going to give bonus credit to Architects for doing the exact same thing in 2016. And I'm definitely not going to give it to him now either. Living is Killing Us is another song that comes off as pseudo-political. It's like all the lyrics are just sort of about how I think this song is about how corporations have commodified existence so much that just existing is difficult. I'm meeting them way more than halfway here because this is another example of Architects using softball, low-impact, pseudo-political language in their songs as if to take a stance, as if to look like they're taking a stance when in reality they've just caught up to everybody else. And so it's like, as a listener, how am I supposed to react to hearing that message? Like, yes, I agree. Thank you. Yes, sure, I agree. Thank you. Congratulations. You've caught up. You have finally caught up to the discussion. Everybody knows it's not cheap to f***ing exist. Whatever. So the riff in When We Were Young is legitimately pretty sick. I think it sounded a little bit cooler when Turnstile did it. So this song was the first single on the album, which was released on 4/20. Nice. Which was almost exactly 3 months after the music festival by the same name announced their return to being a music festival. Given the tone of the rest of this album, if you agree with me so far that Architects have neutered their own sound specifically to try and go for as broad appeal as possible, it's hard not to find the timing of a single by this name to be a little like weird, like, I don't know, pathetic, I guess. Like at this time, Turnstile was enjoying a huge bump in their popularity. They're on like Taco Bell commercials at this point, right? And then this When We Were Young Fest gets announced, and it just feels like a bunch of old white dudes in a boardroom were like, what do we got? What's popular? What's going crazy right now in hardcore music of any kind? Well, we could write a song that sounds exactly like Turnstile, who's enjoying this meteoric rise right now, and call it When We Were Young, and we'll snag a bunch of accidental listens because people will be searching the internet for the festival. Like, I truly believe as soon as the festival was announced, somebody in the Architects camp was like, here's what we're doing. We're going to write and release a song as soon as possible. We're going to write a song around the phrase, When We Were Young. What do we got? When we were young, we thought we had everything figured out. It's just like this, like, the lyrics of this song have the level of social insight as like an episode of The Big Bang Theory. It's just so lazy and safe. And again, they're just not saying anything. It sounds like the song was written in like a 4-hour period of time and then immediately shipped off to get mixed. And then they got working on the video. I will bet you all the money in the world that the song When We Were Young was conceived after and because of the announcement of the music festival by the same name, and they whipped it together as quickly as they could so they can enjoy some of that sweet SEO, because the lyrics and the structure of the song seem to imply that it just doesn't seem like it was worked on for a real long time, that's all. Which is a theme that's shared by the lyrics on this entire album, essentially. The lyrics on this album are so bland and thoughtless and safe that it reminds me of, like, this is like the pop rock version of Wine Mom music. You know, like a CD you might be able to pick up in line at Starbucks. Just vaguely affirming, sort of not challenging, you know, lyrical content that you can just kind of sort of be like, yeah, feel some sense of something. So we're going to talk about doom scrolling a little bit. Before we talk about that, let me just say that, believe it or not, this album is actually front-loaded. So the half of the album we just got done complaining about, that was the better half of this album, for real, with the exception of one song. So strap in. I say strap in as if something's going to happen. Look, the truth of the matter is most of this album is simply boring. Not interesting enough to be good and not bad enough to be interesting. And if you ask me, that's probably the worst thing you can be in any sort of art, is boring and mundane. That said, doom scrolling is boring. It's a boring song. Nothing happens. It's very formulaic. Pass. Another thing, and sort of a more general note about the entire album, is that the choruses on this album are so run-of-the-mill. This album feels like it was purpose-built to get as much of its music in as many sports video games and primetime television commercials as they possibly could, which is hysterical, because that's such an outdated model, and that's part of the reason I think that this was like a corporately driven album, is that it's going about this in a way that might have, well, probably would have worked 10 years ago. Not so sure these days. I don't know, we'll see. I mean, God, the album already has millions and millions of streams, so, you know, maybe this is all just me being contrarian. Maybe I'm the only one, I don't know. You know, guys, I swear to God, I promise, I like things. The next video I do is going to be a spotlight on an album I actually like, I swear to God, like an older album, because I don't want my content to just be me like continually bitching about everything. I do not want to become like the old man yells at cloud of the metalcore scene. That's not what I want. The pre-chorus to Born Again Pessimist is kind of, I don't know, just gross sounding. Vocal swoops are such like an overused technique of amateur singers. It's something that we burnt out on in like 2013 with like the woe is me era. I'm not saying he's an amateur singer, I'm saying he did it a lot, and then amateur singers who don't know how to write vocal parts didn't know what to do, and they just went, well, he's really, really good. He's like the Justin Timberlake of metal, let's sing like him. And the only thing that they could pull off of the only technique that they could copy was this fucking I'm over it. I'm fucking over it. I'm sorry, you gotta know that I've recorded this video 3 times in the past week, and I usually get to around this point where I have some sort of like conniption or like mental breakdown that halts my progress. Power through. It's okay, we're almost through this. A New Moral Low Ground is actually a pretty good song. You remember earlier when I said that the whole second half of the album sucked except for one song? This is that one song. It's high energy. As far as like what they were trying to accomplish, writing a high energy butt rock song, they achieved it. I liked it. It's catchy. It had me bobbing my head. It's good job. This is the first song in this entire album that I actually kind of like. Aside from the bridge, where they do this like slow jam bridge that just doesn't, it's like, again, they had this like high energy, high momentum pop rock song, and then the bridge, they just cut it all out. They just go fucking slow-mo for the bridge, and it's like, the big reason I liked the song is no longer present in the song. You know, bridges sometimes are the best part of the song. You ever think about that? You ever think how bridges are sometimes not filler and good music, and sometimes they actually are good? Think about that. Look, there are a couple more songs on the album. Suffice to say that if I were to talk about those songs, it would just be me repeating myself, which is sort of ironic, because this album is repetitive, and that quality makes the review of it a little bit repetitive. Well played, I guess, Architects. Overall, the music just feels really uninspired. Again, it seems very like sort of designed by a committee. I don't have a problem with artists trying to make money. I truly don't. Make whatever kind of art you want. I'm not going to chide you simply for making a different kind of art. But when you do that, when you make that different kind of art in a way that sort of implies to me as a listener a cynical intent, where you don't really believe in what you're doing, it becomes easier for me to justify talking what you've done, because the more it seems like you've exploited your audience, the less I care about any cry for artistic integrity. Truly. That's the only thing for me. Like, if you're gonna do butt rock, do it. There's a lot of great butt rock out there, but like, do it because you believe in it. Do it because it's something that you like to do or whatever, and not just because you think it's going to be the thing that moves the most units or whatever. Please, because as listeners, we can tell. Frankly, I think anybody can tell when something's made from a place of honesty and authenticity, and we can certainly tell when it's not. and this was not. This is their 10th album. The other 9 albums are metalcore, so even if you say 90% of their music is metalcore, I think that's a justification enough to put it on our tier list. It's going in. This is hard to listen to because not only because it's worse than every other album on this list, but because it's hard to listen to. Listen, it's hard to shit on this album too much because frankly, I could see a new generation of future metalheads really attaching to this album because it is safe, because it is accessible, because it's something your parents probably wouldn't mind that you listen to. And then getting those kids onto a path towards heavier music, similar to what Linkin Park did to me when I was 12, 13 years old. Meteora and Hybrid Theory are categorically better than the classic Symptoms of blah, 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 blah. But I hope you get my point. Like, one of the things this album has in its favor is its accessibility. And I hope that a young generation can use this as a sort of springboard to jump off into discovering a whole world of heavy music like I did. It's something that I grew to love. It's literally it's like 100% of my personality. So of course I value that. I truly hope that this album provides that value to our culture because it's not providing value anywhere else.